Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. We're in the middle of May, but we're going to talk about college football. Why are we going to talk about college football? Well, the South Point Hotel and Casino here in Las Vegas, sportsbook run by Chris Andrews, a good friend of mine, and all of us guys here on the panel and WagerTalk. They put up week one college football lines. That was on Monday. They let the public come in, bet those games. They opened them at 10 a.m. You were able to bet 3 games at a time, max bet for $1,000. Then you go to the back of the line, come back up to bet. It's the fairest way to let people have a first crack at these numbers. These two guys were down there at the South Point. I couldn't get down there on Monday. I have radio shows, so wasn't able to take part in that. There was some fast and furious numbers jumping all over the board. I'm going to start with you, Ralph, and I know you were there with a good friend of ours, Brad Powers. Shout out to him. Tell us about some of the games that you and Brad jumped on right away.
You know, well, Brad and I both came from Phil Steele, and we used to make numbers early, and, you know, it's just sort of just a continuation of what we've done. And we actually talked the day before. We made our numbers on all these games. Then we just looked to where the differences were with what Chris had. And, you know, there was a couple games, the 3 games that we jumped on first. Notre Dame opened up -7 against Michigan. There was one person ahead of us. Paul Stone was in line. He jumped that for $1,000. That made the line 6. We bet it again. It went down to 5 after that. Florida State on Monday night, September the 3rd, Labor Day, opened a pick. That ended up closing at -4. And then Minnesota against New Mexico State is a game on Thursday. They play Thursday, August the 4th. Well, New Mexico State had been in the Sun Belt for all these years. They are now an independent, so they struggled to find people to play. They didn't want to play every game on the road, and they had to play some home and road games. They actually play Saturday the 25th. They're going to be the first college team ever to play 2 games in August. So they're going to play at home on Saturday. 4 days later, they have to go to Michigan, play on the road against a hungry Big Ten team, a real disadvantage for them in the scheduling spot. And, you know, just for those that love this kind of stuff, you know, we'll mention Chris Andrews will be on our podcast tomorrow on Thursday talking games of the year line. That'll be really exciting with 50 more games available all throughout the season. These situational plays like that, we'll talk about more on the podcast. That's really where they come to fruition.
Yeah, and Brian, we'll get into more that they did this on Monday, opened up week one. Thursday this week, if you're in town for anything, you can head down to the South Point yourself. They're bringing out the game of the year lines. You said he's going to bring out 50 of them?
He posted them on his Twitter already, what those games are.
What the games are going to be. And kudos to him. He's telling, you know, he's tipping the hand, letting you know who the games are. And it is a good way for the books then to help themselves. I mean, yeah, they're going to get beat up on some bad numbers, but they're going to be able, Brian, once they see where all of the people that they respect and the sharps that are down there, because let's face it, John Q. Public's not walking up into the South Point at 10 a.m. on Thursday to bet a game in November, okay? That's just not happening. It's people that do this for a living and they respect their opinion.
Just so people know, there were about 12 people.
12.
There were about 12 people that were betting there, and those 12 have an exclusive from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. At that point, Chris opens it up as a sister property, the Rampart, and to the app. So you could bet Game of the Year line plays after 1 hour, and then on Sunday he's opening all his college win totals for all 129 teams this year.
Good stuff for that. Brian, we talked off air. This almost like reminds of the good old days. Remember the Stardust here in Las Vegas? That was the place that originated the lines. I mean, it was world famous for that. And they would do things like this. I can remember, you know, when I was here visiting and then following the Stardust and that, when they would bring the Sunday night lines out, that was, you know, the big thing. You know, people would be down there, the sharps. But Stardust let select people have a first crack at that, you know, and it was sharp people in town, and it was their way of, they'll take a little bit of a loss if they get beat up on a number, but they'd rather get beat up by a few people that are sharp to help them massage the number so they don't, whenever they open it up at full limits, they're not getting crushed. And you've been here a long time. You take part in this every year.
Yeah, I live for these days, and it's an opportunity to bet against the line maker and just a handful of other people, whereas opposed to regular sports betting, you're betting against millions of people. It's very similar to what has gone down at the Gold Nugget in the past. The Win does it every week in college football. There's a line of 12, 20 guys doing that. We worked as a group, and my meaning that was, since you're only allowed to get 3 plays in at a time, Rolf and Brad would get in line with the cash. I would sit there and I would play offshore. And there was a big discrepancies in some of these lines. You talked about the Michigan game where it was at 7, went down to 6. It was offshore at Notre Dame -1.5. So I'm sitting there, laying the 1.5, and then we'll take it back to 7 or the 6 or whatever. And we found some pretty good middles there that we got some good opportunities for. And one of the things that came out in the press, and it's been corrected, I spoke to Jeff Fogel yesterday, who works at Visa, and he does their newsletter, great newsletter over there. I told him, I said, these weren't true line moves. These were guys setting themselves up for a middle or whatever. So just because all the money came in against Notre Dame in that game does not mean everybody loved Michigan. It just means the line everybody had on Michigan was lower.
Right.
And so now we're getting to the point now, as you pointed out, that he can use this information that he got from week 1 and put that towards the future. But Chris is smart enough to know it wasn't just everybody betting against him. It was people taking a position on both sides, looking for that middle. A lot of guys will just play the numbers where they think is a bad number. Other guys are just looking to grind. And, I've been around a long time. If you could grind for some free money, you're going to do it.
Anytime you can make money. Just mention for our listeners some of these games that had the big movement. One of the ones that, Northwestern Purdue. Purdue opened up in that game a 2-point underdog at home, and within a couple, that hour, they're a favorite of 3 now. Where's the love there?
It's the Thorson injury. It doesn't look like he'll be back. I mean, Chris made the line probably with Thorson supposed to be playing. He's going to miss at least the first few weeks of the game. So that information has come out in the last few days. I'm sure Chris had these lines for a few days in his head. Maybe didn't make that adjustment. So that is just a clear quarterback injury adjustment. And although it moved 5.5 points, when you're moving over 0, you're losing some of. It's not a 5.5 point move.
It's not a true 5.5
over 0. But again, it is a conference game, so you grab a couple points in a conference game first week. It's always a big deal.
Here's one that this was a big 5-point move, and it wasn't going through 0. Syracuse and Western Michigan. That opened Syracuse on the road -1, and that number ended up. They kept betting it and betting it and betting it. They took it all the way up to 6. On that one. Syracuse showed some life last year. Is this a continuation from last year? Or you're the MAC guy, is Western Michigan that bad?
Well, part of it was, we talked about Brad earlier, she's high on Syracuse. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here with that information. But it was also a combination of, you got a Western Michigan team who is not as good as they've been in the past. They had a couple great years with a different coach, and now they're back to being what the normal MAC is. But you've got a MAC coach playing in Syracuse, and he's had a lot of success, and he knows how to play that team. And so there's a lot of advantages to playing Syracuse there.
One of those other ones that went through 0, and the only reason I bring it up because you are a MAC guy, Brian, the Marshall-Miami of Ohio game. Miami of Ohio opened up a 3-point home underdog, and they bet that all the way around, crossed it through. They're now 1.5-point favorite. Where's the difference? Marshall down. I know Marshall was a team going into last year that a lot of people didn't really like, but then they overachieved for a while. But, Miami of Ohio came on. This is when you watch the MAC, everybody scores a ton of points. So you never, I don't know how to grade these defenses in this league. Why is the love there?
I didn't have any part in this game. In fact, I'm not even sure if I fully agree with the line move on this one. Miami's a team, I've always liked Miami. How many times have we been on Miami a few years ago? You were telling me about how much we liked them. And
yeah, when my son went there, I was following them a lot. And, sorry, go ahead. Continue.
No, go ahead.
They're just a team that has underachieved. When Martin came from Notre Dame and took over the head coaching job, the first year he used a couple of Notre Dame players, and he brought over the quarterback and the tight end, and they had a decent year. Well, the next year, they had the number 2 recruiting class in the MAC behind Western Michigan. Western Michigan gets those Florida kids, and they're a little different than anyone else. But it's always been Toledo, Western Michigan is the top recruiting team. Well, Miami has been number 1, 2, or 3 each of the last 3 years. The problem is they just lose so many close games. And, normally, back to the Phil Steele days, if you lose close games, you tend to revert back where it's a positive the next year that you're not going to lose those close games. With Miami, they've been shell-shocked, lost close game after close game each of the last 3 years. They have the talent, they've just not put it together on the field. You look at them on paper, I picked them to win the MAC, their division last year. I thought they would be that good, and again, they underachieved. So on paper, they're better than they've been on the field.
Yeah, it's interesting that because I was going to mention the disparity with the losing the close games. Yeah, normally you're going to say, well, it averages back out, but Paul Stone, another guy we respect, was there, and he goes, I think there's something wrong there, that they continue to lose these games. He didn't believe in the regression coming, so that's what a lot of people are looking for, regression. I'm not sure if it's the right way to look at it.
Sometimes you're just that bad, that you're just not good enough to win those close games.
If you have bad quarterbacks, you're going to have that happen. And they have had some pretty good quarterbacks the last couple of years, so we'll have to see. But if you don't take care of the football, you're not going to win close games.
Last one we'll talk about, and we'll wrap this one up, and this kind of surprised me. Texas, and it was a 3-point move, but then it did move through a key number. Texas opened up as a 12-point favorite on the road at Maryland. We're talking second year with the head coach at Texas. Generally, you're going to see more of an improvement in that second year because remember, that first year, everybody gets all excited about a new coach, and that sometimes is a mistake because remember, he's coming in there, but he's got all the players from the coach that just left. And if it's not the same kind of system, there's a learning curve there. But you see a progression in the second year, and generally the sweet spot is year 3 because then he's got, most of the team is his players and his system. You've got Texas opened at 12. They bet it down to 9. The last guy that bet it got the bad number there, but they moved it through 10.
I didn't understand that line move either. You've got a Texas team who's a much better team, excellent coach. And if you remember, last year they lost as a favorite at home to this team. So it's a revenge game for them coming out of the block. I will be on Texas, but I'm going to let this line continue to go down.
Yeah, first game out of the season, they've been working on that one.
Yeah.
All the spring practices.
There's a lot of excitement for Maryland. Maryland started 4 quarterbacks last year. They had 3 quarterback injuries, and anytime that happens, your season's in ruins. I made this line 13 Texas. I'm a huge Longhorns fan. I may think about actually playing the 9 now. If it goes any lower, I'm on them. So that is the absolute one-line move that I am the biggest anti-play against, and I love Texas. I would have laid the 12 with Texas, and I made the line 13.
There you go. All right, hey, guys, great stuff talking about this. And be sure, guys, I want to tease the podcast for Thursday night because I'm excited to have a fellow Pittsburgher, Chris Andrews. He is the sportsbook director at South Point. South Point, they take some money there. I love the way they operate. Probably one of the sharpest books on, the Las Vegas Strip. I would put them and CG, for getting more of the sharp players. And they'll take some bets.
For those that like to follow Jimmy Vaccaro because he tweets out, hey, we took $40,000 money line on this play, and he's a great follow on Twitter. You get to know what South Point's taking, what kind of big bets they're taking when it gets to be game time.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hey, I want to tell you that don't forget, every Monday at WagerTalk, it's Manic Monday. What's that mean? Well, that means we go crazy. We give every play away for $9. Doesn't matter if it's a 5% play that normally sells for $30. You get it for $9 on Monday. Check it out. Each and every play from every capper at the site, $9. Then move over to Tuesday. It's $2 Tuesday. We pick one capper who's on a nice hot streak, feature his play, his best bet, and we give it to you for $2. It's a great way to try WagerTalk if you've never done it before. $2, that's less than a cup of coffee. Or if you see one of your favorites and you want to get a great deal, do it. Or, hey, try out a new capper. It's a great way to get introduced to WagerTalk. That's it for this video. Hey, do us a favor. You like them? Give us the old thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to share it with your friends. We'll be back with more WagerTalk.com.